Imagine waiting, I don't know, like 6 months for a new car. And not because the engine is missing or, the leather seats are back ordered,
Right.
but because a $2 microchip is just stuck on a cargo ship halfway across the planet.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about.
It is. And the thing is, that's not some hypothetical scenario. I mean, it's the exact crisis that basically killed the golden rule of global economics. And it's completely reshaping the world we live in right now.
Completely.
Have you, as a listener, noticed how almost everything from the price of your smartphone to whether you can get antibiotics at the pharmacy suddenly feels inextricably tied to international news? It's like the invisible strings connecting our daily lives to the rest of the globe are suddenly just, pulled taut.
Yeah, it's a really profound shift. And, well, we're all feeling that tension right now. I mean, the distance between local consumer economics and global geopolitics it's essentially vanished.
Mm.
We're living through a fundamental rewiring of just how the world operates.
And that is exactly our mission for today's deep dive. We are exploring this really fascinating research paper by Ahmad M. Dipu. He's an independent researcher, a lawyer, and the founder of the International Language Learning and Translation Center, or ILLTC.
Right.
His work kind of bridges international relations, economics, and law. He draws on this really diverse experience across military, public, and private sectors. But the core argument he makes here is just staggering.
It really is.
He argues we are entering a brand new era of international relations. We are shifting away from what we traditionally called, globalization, and we're stepping into the age of geoeconomics.
Yeah, and to really grasp the gravity of that shift, I mean, we need to set the baseline first. We have to understand the specific logic of the world we're actually leaving behind.
Right, the old rules.
Exactly. Because for decades, the global order operated on one remarkably simple golden rule, which was cost efficiency.
Just make it cheap.
Exactly. The overarching theory of that old globalization was that goods and capital should flow as freely as possible across borders, and production should simply happen wherever it was the absolute cheapest to do so.
Right. So if it's cheaper to assemble electronics in Vietnam or sew ready-made garments in Bangladesh, that is exactly where the factories go.
Yep.
The whole goal was stripping away every possible cent of friction between the raw material and the consumer's doorstep.
Precisely. And this relentless pursuit of cost efficiency, it birthed the era of just-in-time production.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If you're a car manufacturer in Detroit, why would you pay millions of dollars to warehouse spare parts locally?
Right. That's just dead money sitting there.
Exactly. Instead, you build a logistics network so precise that those parts are shipped across the ocean and they arrive literally on the morning the factory floor needs them.
Wow.
It was a beautiful lean system. I mean, it maximized corporate profits, it expanded global trade exponentially, and it brought numerous developing nations into the industrial fold.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because there was a really sweeping assumption built into that old system, wasn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
The underlying belief was that economic integration would just inevitably create political stability. The prevailing theory was, if all our economies are deeply intertwined, if we all rely on each other to build our phones and cars and clothes, then we simply can't afford to fight.
Right. It's the Golden Arches theory of conflict prevention, basically.
Yeah. But the last few years have proven that theory just spectacularly wrong.
Yeah, the idea that trade guarantees peace was, well, it was an illusion, and it finally shattered. We've transitioned from those neat theories of the old world into the messy, chaotic crises that broke it.
Yeah.
And Deepu's research identifies two major global events that acted as the ultimate wake-up calls. The first catalyst, naturally, was the COVID-19 pandemic.
That was the exact moment the just-in-time machine just hit a brick wall.
It did, and it exposed the hidden rot in the system, because the pandemic revealed exactly how dangerous long centralized supply chains are, especially for critical goods.
I mean, almost overnight, nations realized they were entirely dependent on distant factories for basic survival necessities. Medicines, ventilators, PPE, and, the semiconductors that power almost every modern device. Their supply chains were completely choked.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
It's kind of like, it's like relying on a single massive grocery store on the exact opposite side of town just because it's a few cents cheaper.
Right.
But then a blizzard hits, and you realize you have zero food in the pantry and no local backup whatsoever. Or like a world-class orchestra where the violins are in London, the cellos are in Tokyo, and the conductor's in New York. If the Wi-Fi drops for even one section, you don't just get a slightly worse symphony. The entire performance just collapses.
That is a phenomenal analogy, actually,
Yeah.
because it captures the interdependence perfectly. You essentially traded resilience for absolute efficiency. And, in a storm, efficiency is not going to keep you alive.
No, it really won't.
And just as global leaders were realizing the sheer fragility of these corporate supply chains, the second catalyst hit, which was the Russia-Ukraine war.
Which brought an entirely different and honestly much darker shock to the system.
Yes, the Russia-Ukraine conflict proved definitively that certain commodities are not just, items bought and sold on a free market spreadsheet. Energy, for instance, isn't merely an economic commodity anymore.
No.
It is a potent geopolitical weapon, and it was actively used to exert immense influence and pressure on entire continents.
Because when winter is approaching and your adversary controls the pipeline that physically heats your citizens' homes, I mean, they hold all the leverage.
Exactly.
They can just throttle the supply to force political concessions.
Right. The mechanics of that leverage are brutal. It showed the entire world that relying on a single dominant supplier for something as fundamental as energy, or grain even, it leaves a nation entirely exposed to political blackmail.
So the ultimate realization for you listening right now is that highly centralized supply chains might look incredibly efficient on paper, but they become massive critical vulnerabilities the second a crisis hits.
Yeah, exactly.
The old world prized the absolute cheapest factory, but these crises proved that cheapest is entirely worthless if the product cannot physically reach you.
What's fascinating here is how the world is actually responding to this trauma.
Mm.
Because the natural assumption might be, well, we're entering an era of strict isolationism, building walls and just stopping trade.
Right, like everyone just retreating inward.
Exactly. Some people call it deglobalization. But Deepu's paper clarifies this beautifully. This is not deglobalization. The world is still deeply, irrevocably connected. Globalization isn't ending, but its fundamental character is mutating.
A mutation. Okay, so if the old cost-obsessed system is broken, what exactly is replacing it?
Welcome to the age of geoeconomics. The primary question driving global trade has just fundamentally changed. Decision makers in boardrooms and government offices are no longer just asking, where is production the cheapest?
What are they asking then?
The overriding question now is, where's the safest, most reliable, and strategically stable place to produce?
Safest and most reliable. Yeah, looking at the frameworks provided in DP's research, there are some very clear new priorities defining this era. We are moving way away from mere integration. The new watchwords are resilience, security, trust, and this incredibly interesting concept of friendshoring.
Oh yeah. Friendshoring is the critical mechanism of this new era. It basically involves moving supply chains away from potential geopolitical rivals and relocating them to allied nations.
Like countries you actually like.
Right. Countries with which you share trust, strategic alignment, and generally democratic values. It is a deliberate, calculated effort to reduce extreme dependence on any single, potentially hostile source.
And reading through the source material, it's really clear this isn't just about everyday consumer goods, like sneakers or televisions. We're talking about specific, highly sensitive industries.
Very sensitive.
Semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, rare earth minerals, energy infrastructure, artificial intelligence, and cyber networks.
Because under the old globalization, a microchip or a rare earth mineral was just another product. You traded it on the open market like anything else. But in the age of geoeconomics, these are no longer categorized as regular economic sectors.
Right.
They are explicitly defined as strategic assets. They are the foundational building blocks of both future economic dominance and national security. Control over AI development or, semiconductor manufacturing is now viewed with the exact same strategic weight as controlling vital shipping lanes or physical territory was back in the 20th century.
Okay, wait, I have to ask a question here because this sounds a bit like we are traveling backward in time.
How so?
Well, does this mean a return to the 1970s where governments just step in and nationalize major industries? Like, if these tech sectors are so critical to national survival, are states just taking them over?
So that is a very common misconception, and it's one the text explicitly corrects, actually. We are not seeing a return to full state ownership or, the death of the free market.
Okay, good.
Instead, governments are taking on a new, highly aggressive role, but within the market framework. They are wielding state intervention in incredibly targeted ways.
But how does that actually work in practice? Like, if a government isn't buying the factory, how are they controlling the supply chain?
Through modern industrial policy. So let's say a company wants to build a cutting-edge semiconductor plant. It costs, say, $10 billion. A company won't build it in the US or Europe if it costs 40% more to operate there than in a cheap Asian hub.
Right, the map simply doesn't work for their shareholders.
Exactly. But if the government steps in and offers $4 billion in tax breaks, direct grants, and guaranteed infrastructure development, well, the math suddenly flips.
Ah, I see.
The state isn't running the factory, but they're altering the financial gravity to ensure that factory is built on friendly soil. They're essentially de-risking the investment to buy national security.
Okay, so economics is now a strategic weapon, heavily guided by the state. But if economics and technology are the new battlegrounds, what happens to traditional military power? I mean, do bullets and tanks still matter when we're supposedly fighting over bytes and microchips?
Oh, they absolutely do. The author makes it crystal clear that in this changed world order, military power hasn't lost an ounce of its importance. It remains the absolute bedrock of state power.
Okay.
However, the nature of that power has evolved. A modern military is basically entirely useless without a powerful, advanced economic engine backing it up.
Wait, I'm getting stuck here for a second. If we are relying on these secure allied supply chains for our advanced military tech, this whole friend-shoring concept you mentioned, doesn't that mean our military is only as strong as our weakest friend-shored ally? Doesn't spreading our defense supply chains across multiple friendly nations just create, a brand new kind of vulnerability?
That is a brilliant deduction, and it gets right to the heart of the geopolitical anxiety we're seeing today.
Yeah.
Yes, if a critical component of your missile defense system is built by an ally, and that ally experiences domestic turmoil or just a sudden change in foreign policy, your military readiness drops to zero.
Wow.
That is exactly why the coordination between allied nations is becoming just as intense as military alliances were during the Cold War.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. You literally cannot deploy a modern, high-tech army without the exact things we just talked about.
Right.
You need cutting-edge AI for drone swarms. You need completely secure, uninterrupted semiconductor supply chains for your targeting systems. You need ironclad energy security to actually move your forces. And honestly, you need a stable financial infrastructure just to fund the sheer cost of modern conflict.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see what experts call comprehensive national power.
Comprehensive national power.
Okay. Yeah, let me explain what that term actually means. In the past, you might measure a country's strength by simply counting its warships or infantry divisions, right?
Just counting tanks.
Exactly. Today, comprehensive national power measures the fusion of military might, economic output, technological leadership, and diplomatic alliances. The rise of geoeconomics isn't a replacement for military might. It's an indispensable dimension of it.
Because they just constantly feed into each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Military strength relies on economic and technological strength. But conversely, your economic and technological progress cannot survive long-term without the physical security umbrella provided by a strong military.
Right.
If your global trade routes aren't secure, or if your underwater internet cables are vulnerable to physical attack, your advanced economy will collapse. In the modern world, military, economic, and technological capabilities are mutually reinforcing. You cannot be a great power with only one of them.
This raises a really vital question for how this plays out in the real world. We've talked a lot about the theory of this shift, moving from pure cost efficiency to strategic resilience. But how is this theoretical shift actively redrawing the map of global trade right now?
Oh, it's happening fast.
Because surely moving billions of dollars of manufacturing is creating sweeping ripples, minting new winners, and sparking new rivalries?
It is fundamentally rewiring the global map as we speak. Because multinational companies are actively diversifying away from single, centralized production hubs, we are witnessing a historic global reshuffle. And this is creating monumental opportunities for a specific set of emerging economies.
Yeah, we are actually seeing this play out in real time. Deepu's research highlights the incredible investment pouring into places like India, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Mexico.
Yeah.
Because Western companies are desperate for that supply diversification, these nations are suddenly the beneficiaries of immense foreign capital.
Yes, and crucially, they're experiencing significant tech transfers.
Let's break that term down for a second, because a tech transfer isn't just, an American company shipping a bunch of laptops to a new office in Hanoi, right?
Not at all. A true tech transfer is completely transformative for a developing nation. When a multinational corporation builds an advanced manufacturing facility in a new country, They have to train local engineers to run it.
Right? They can't just run it remotely.
Exactly. They bring in proprietary software, advanced robotics, complex management systems, and over time, that knowledge permanently levels up the local workforce. Local universities even start tailoring their engineering degrees to feed those factories.
So the host country doesn't just get a factory, they inherit a blueprint for industrial modernization.
Spot on. Mexico is seeing this heavily right now due to its proximity to the U.S., while India and Southeast Asia are becoming massive new hubs for electronics.
But of course, moving the center of gravity of global tech manufacturing doesn't happen in a vacuum. It comes with fierce geopolitical friction.
Unquestionably. As the economic map changes, the global balance of power shifts with it. Western nations are rapidly adopting sweeping new policies to secure their grip on strategic industries.
And the source material is really careful to present the two distinct ways that these Western policies are interpreted globally. And we want to be completely impartial here and represent exactly what Deepu lays out.
Right, totally.
On one hand, these policies like governments pouring billions into domestic semiconductor manufacturing are viewed purely defensively. They are seen as necessary efforts to boost national security and create economic resilience against future shocks, just ensuring we never face another pandemic-level supply chain collapse.
Yeah, that is the domestic view.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, the text notes that many international observers interpret these exact same policies as a much broader, more aggressive strategy to rebalance global power.
How so?
Well, by hoarding the development of these strategic industries, the West is ensuring they maintain future technological hegemony. It allows them to retain the power to set the global rules of trade, digital privacy, and AI ethics. Ultimately, whichever lens you view it through, the reality on the ground is just a fierce, high-stakes competition for the future of economic dominance.
So what does this all mean for a country trying to rise in this newly fenced-off system? The author uses Bangladesh as a specific case study to draw out some vital lessons for developing nations facing this reshuffled board.
And his warning to those nations is incredibly stark. The economic playbook that worked for the last 30 years is just being thrown out the window.
Wow.
For a developing nation, relying purely on being a source of cheap labor is no longer enough to survive, let alone thrive.
Because offering a company the lowest hourly wage doesn't matter at all if you can't guarantee the power grid will stay on to run their AI server.
Precisely. The hurdles have changed. The survival guide for an emerging market in the geoeconomic age is immensely demanding. To compete for these new supply chains, a country must transition to highly skilled labor. You can't just offer an empty warehouse. You need a workforce capable of precision engineering. They require advanced, resilient infrastructure, deep water ports, flawless logistics, and absolute energy security.
That's a huge checklist.
It is. And furthermore, they have to overhaul their legal frameworks to protect foreign intellectual property and create a truly stable investment environment.
So the barrier to entry just got impossibly higher for some places. You have to prove that you are a reliable strategic partner. You have to offer stability in a chaotic world.
That is the crux of the matter. The competition of the future isn't a race to the bottom for the cheapest goods anymore. It's a race to the top for trust. It's about who can prove themselves to be the most secure, legally transparent, and strategically aligned partner in a highly volatile world.
So to pull all of these complex threads together, the core thesis of Ahmed M. Deepu's research is that the next chapter of international relations isn't just going to be written in the traditional history books of troop movements, treaties, and diplomacy.
No, it really won't.
It will be a history of economic strength, technological capacity, and strategic resilience. The nations that will lead the future are the ones that figure out how to leverage the innovation of a free market while simultaneously using state intervention to aggressively secure their critical assets.
Which fundamentally changes how we should all view the broader world and, honestly, our own backyards. Think about the industry you work in or the services your family relies on daily. In a world where the old standard of cheapest is rapidly being replaced by the new standard of safest, what hidden vulnerabilities exist in your own daily supply chains?
Yeah, it's a sobering thought.
If a geopolitical shock severed the invisible strings connecting your phone, your car, or your livelihood to the rest of the world tomorrow, what would your backup plan be?